Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Pitch Light Chronicles. I'm Uncle Tats. I'm here with Donald and Rob. And one of the things that we started getting into near the end of Wednesday's show was the big news that the Padres really want to cut down on their payroll. It's left the opportunity to bring back into the decision with a little more thought with where Juan Soto can actually fit in to the roster, where it makes sense strategically and financially. And so, with a lot of money coming off the books, a lot of the young kids that are on the minimum wage, I'll say it that way. There's a lot of flexibility to make this work, and we have prospects that we don't know where they're even going to fit in as the future starts to fall into place, that we can move that have value. So I'm one of those guys. I wanted Soto 2 deadlines ago when Washington was ready to move him. I thought that was the time to strike, right? And I think during that show, everybody, including my co-host, everybody in the chat, we were all in agreement that that was the opportunity to make that move. Has anything changed from your points of view? It has not changed through mine. Even with Dominguez, even more so now because he's going to be out for a little bit of time next year. It puts even more of an urgency to get somebody like Soto to protect Judge in the lineup, because we're seeing a massive decline in Stanton. So Judge needs that protection. If you could wrap Gleyber and Soto around Judge, I think that's a winning formula right there as far as power in the lineup, because they're not home run or nothing. They can, they're going to hit it in the gap. They're going to get the extra bases. Are you guys still in favor, or have you fallen out of favor of Soto becoming a major focal point in the offseason?
Bring him to the boogie down. It's as simple as that. If he's available, go get Juan Soto. I'll leave it at that. If he's out there, we don't know. We don't know because Hector Gomez just said that they're going to try to extend him. So if that's the case and they start playing this Brian Reynolds hardball type of game, then you got to move on quickly and go get maybe Bellinger or something like that. But that's another discussion. But if they say we're listening for trade offers for Juan Soto, Brian Cashman, as soon as the offseason starts, pick up that phone, ask what it's going to take, and go get him. If it takes Spencer Jones and some other prospects, you got to do it. Juan Soto, he's got a career high home runs this year. He probably, at a full season at Yankee Stadium, he'd probably hit 40. You put him even before Judge, like if you go Torres, Judge, or Torres, Soto, Judge, Rizzo, Stanton, that's a deadly top 5. That makes Rizzo better. That makes Stanton better. They actually have to pitch to Aaron Judge. Gleyber Torres might feast at the leadoff spot. There's so many possibilities. And then you have like Volpe and Peraza, Florial, Wells behind them to round out the order. You're still trusting some of your young kids. That allows you to actually wait for Dominguez to be 100% so you don't rush him back. And it allows Soto to see what it's like playing in New York, to be like, all right, I want to come back here, and you extend who's a guy's like 25-year-old superstar. It makes all the sense in the world. If he's available, go get him. It shouldn't even be a yes or no question for fans. If Juan Soto's available, he needs to be in pinstripes. Yankee pinstripes, not fucking Queens Mets pinstripes.
The fake pinstripes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Donald?
Go get him, man. He's got 35 home runs and 100-plus RBIs already over there in San Diego. It's a no-brainer. The thing is, I mean, I'm reading articles right now where the Mets are like one of the favorites right now because they've got the prospects and the wherewithal to go get them. Brian Cashman cannot allow him to go to the Mets. He can't allow it. I mean, and in an off-season market where Soto's going to be available, Bellinger's going to be available, and Ohtani's going to be available, there is some significant bats there that can upgrade this lineup. So I wouldn't allow Soto to go elsewhere. Can't be afraid to give up the prospects. I think a deal centered around, say, Clark Schmidt, Pereira, Spencer Jones, you're probably looking at those names just to start with, um, and and work on a deal around them, and try and get it done. Get it done. There's no wasting time with this one. Now it's interesting because Hal Steinbrenner is going to be doing a full audit here. Um, the audit is going to start basically the day after the season ends. And it's going to be going right after the analytics. Now, this is from what I've read on The Athletic and John Heyman and Sherman. They're going to be doing a huge, huge deep dive right through this organization, right? Centered around the analytics team. So, Mike Fishman, you better start packing your bags, my brother. You might be in trouble. All the disastrous deals that have happened, these auditors are going to be going right through every bit of it. Why the injuries? Why all this money to dud players? And they're going to be going through all this stuff right now. They're not going to be. They're not there to be deciding on personnel in terms of who needs to be being fired or whatever. That's going to be Hal Steinbrenner's job, but it doesn't look good for the analytics team. So obviously we're going to need to discuss that at some point in this podcast, but how it centers around this Soto thing is going to be interesting, because if the organization is going to be doing a deep dive, will they be afraid to be making serious moves that are going to have huge implications on the future? Will they want to keep a hold of their prospects while this audit goes through? Will there be a question of which guys in the front office are going to have the wherewithal to go and make that deal with San Diego? Is it going to be Brian Cashman? Will it be his assistants? Who's going to be involved with the analytics team? Where they're going to be involved? So there are going to be some things here which is going to be worth paying attention to, because obviously the Yankees probably will be hesitant to make major moves until this audit is finished, until they've kind of cleared up the decks and sent and sorted out where they are. So hopefully this Soto thing will play out over the winter, which will allow the Yankees to get this done, figure out who's going to be the general manager and the manager and the front office and the analytics team and the medical staff. All these guys will get sorted out at some point during the winter. Hopefully all that gets tied up and then they can go get Soto. But even still, if the Mets, say right day after the season ends, are already hot on the call and they're like, well, as soon as it's available to do, get me Soto, then Brian Cashman has to intercept. It doesn't matter. You cannot allow Soto to go to New York, the other New York. You can't allow it. Can't allow him to go to Queens. Can't allow it. That has to happen. You got to get him in here for Rob's reasoning, because you look at this lineup and there's just players that just simply are not good enough for the Yankees. And then you go through it, there's not enough power. There's obviously a lack of good outfielders in this whole organization. And that's why you got to go do it. There's going to be payroll coming off the books, a ton of payroll coming off the books, so you can easily afford to fit Soto in there. Even before you probably have to go through a full audit anyway of this roster and start shedding some of these terrible contracts. And then you can start. But you got to start around Soto and Aaron Judge in the middle of the order. You do that, and this team is a different team next year. It's a different team.
Yeah, it's, NFP throws into the discussion here that, there's, they spent billions of dollars and nothing to show for it. Hector and TC, and shout out to the Morning Brew Sports, Hector, TC, Jigga, and their whole team. They have put out they mentioned in their show yesterday how since 2010, right? See, now we're past the two. There's no championship from that point. I think it's $3 billion in payroll and no World Series appearances. That's pathetic. Al made the statement, and Spencer threw in there. We're going to shout out the chat in a second. And Spencer even threw in there, he would have rather than kept that news quiet about the consultant. I think the opposite, because if we'd never heard about it, they could just easily roll out the same bullshit next year with us not being the wiser and thinking it's all Hal's fault. Hal's making the effort, right? And he's making a public effort to change the narrative of the Yankees of being, second fiddle. He's tired of finishing second to everybody. So this might be the wake up call. Unfortunately, Cashman already got his new deal, but that doesn't mean they have to keep him for the 4 years. It's not a guaranteed employment for 4 years. He's just employed by the Yankees for 4 years. So there's, Hal's doing his checks and balances. I'm glad that we know about it because it puts the pressure now publicly on Hal to follow through with all the advice from the consultant. Because if you think that something's not going to leak, well, we recommend, say everything stays status quo. The consultant, it's going to leak because there's always pressure from the media and the public. All right, what'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you tell Hal? If they made a suggestion of, moving on from Fishman or putting Cashman in a different role where he's not the final say as, for trades or free agency, Hal's going to become one of the most hated owners in sports because of the market of New York. What do you guys think about that?
I agree. I'm glad that we're hearing about this because it confirms that I've been saying it. I know a lot of other people have been saying it. I can't believe the idea that Hal doesn't care. And I've been seeing that get thrown around so much on the Elon app. It's just, he doesn't give a shit. Hal doesn't care. He just wants to make money. He wants the chicken buckets. Did you see the home attendance? I know it was rain. It was a weird circumstance, but
I was there. I seen it.
He was there. There was about 12 people on the ground.
Yeah, there was it looked like you took a Photoshop of 2020, like that. It looked like a 2021 game when they were just like sprinkling people in there, and that tells you people aren't going to show up if the team is bad. There's nothing to play for, even with some of the kids here. There's nothing to play for now, so people aren't going to show up. Hal doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to continue to hear his name get dragged through the mud because people think he doesn't care, or just because he's not like George that he doesn't really give a shit. Say what you want. It doesn't faze him. Anybody in their right mind would eventually get sick of hearing their name thrown around like that. Like if I ran the New York Yankees and everyone was just saying Rob doesn't care, fire or sell the team, Rob. Fire Donald if he was my GM. Fire Tats if he was my manager. Fire this. He doesn't want to keep hearing that. I don't want my fans go into the stadium with the giant banner that says fire Donald if he's my GM. Like, I don't want to hear that. So you think Hal is like sitting back like this is fine with the fire around him, like the meme? He doesn't want to do that. He wants this team to win because if the team wins, then people stop talking about him and they start talking about the team. If the Yankees are good, the news is around the Yankees. It's centered around the players. Brian Cashman did a good job. Aaron Boone did a good job. If the Yankees won a championship this year, it wouldn't be how Steinbrenner doesn't care. It'd be, wow, Brian Cashman, maybe he is good. Maybe Aaron Boone is the right man for the job. Aaron Judge is the best contract ever. All this stuff. So you think he wants to be dealing with this shit? No, that's why he's doing this. He's like, I got to fix this. Because, we know he said he has shareholders to answer to. But even they're going to be pissed off. It's like, why are we investing in this losing effort? Like, why would we want to continue to invest in even though the Yankees are still making a ton of money? But it's like, if you win, you make more money. It's as simple as that. That's how it works. So the whole idea that Hal doesn't care, it's always been ridiculous to me. He's not cheap. He cares. He may not care as much. He may not be as vocal about it as his dad was, but there's no question he cares. He wants to see his team win because it's his team. The New York Yankees are his. He doesn't want to see the Steinbrenner name get drugged through the mud like that. So no, he's going to go and do whatever it takes. And he said it back in May. Some tough questions are going to have to be answered if this team misses the playoffs. Well, guess what? They missed the playoffs. And now he's going to get some help and answering and asking those tough questions. He's bringing in a third party to say what the hell went wrong. And maybe they'll be the ones to tell him Fishman and all those cronies of his got to go. And that's a good start. It's a hell of a start because that's what we've been asking for a while. So I'm glad Hal's doing this, and I'm glad they went public with it.
So I've got an article up here in front of me, a very good article by Sherman, believe it or not, on the New York Post. It says here the Yankees, basically the article is about how they can fix the Yankees right now, and it starts with an internal cleanup, right? So at one part in the article, he talks about Brian Cashman's major failings in terms of previous prospects, right? So he says, I spoke to GM Brian Cashman recently about the rise and thud of players such as Bird, Sanchez, Andujar, Frazier, Davy Garcia, and Luis Severino. And you could even include possibly Ron Marinaccio now. I want to include veterans such as Aaron Hicks, Luke Voigt, and how they've crashed down to earth. Cashman said the injuries were at the heart of all their plummets. Also, it's not like, say, for example, Andujar, Bird, or Frazier went on to success elsewhere. So Cashman then tried to spin and said that they were actually Yankee success stories because no other organization got anything out of them. And then Sherman goes, okay, well, if that gets you through the night. But he says, but the problem is that they also failed the Yankees, who failed to recognize that they had trade value before all their value was lost. What were the opportunities missed there? They also have been misreads on how good players were, such as Thairo Estrada, whose contract was sold to the Giants to get Rougned Odor on the roster, and Jordan Montgomery, who has the 14th best Fangraphs WAR among pitchers since the Yankees decided he would not be in their postseason rotation, and traded him for the since-released Harrison Bader. One spot behind Montgomery is Pablo Lopez, who the Yankees considered trading for at the deadline, and ended up with Frankie Montas instead. So the Yankees were susceptible to needing Odor because of they did such a lousy job developing lefty bats. And wanted Bader because they did such a lousy job developing center fielders after Melky Cabrera and Brett Gardner. So he also goes on to say here, the Yankees had just gotten too old, unathletic, and just with one note. There were times this year in which the Yankees played the Orioles and were so Jurassic that it looked like the Minneapolis Lakers versus the Showtime Lakers. From this young group, the Yankees need energy, athleticism, and a diversity away from righty hitting. So he goes on to point out this. This is an important statistic, guys. The Yankees have to figure out what has gone on with their hitting program. They had 22 players take at least 50 plate appearances this season, and just 2, Judge and Torres, have a positive OPS plus. 2 out of 22 have a positive OPS plus, which is actually league average. Anything above league average, and only 2 out of 22 were above league average. It would be hard to assemble that. He goes to say here, it would be hard to assemble that with the lowest payroll in the majors, much less the second highest. They coupled the third lowest batting average in team history, 226, with the second highest strikeout rate, 24%. The lack of competitiveness and adjustments at bat to at bat and game to game was stark. Scouts, pitching coaches, and executives from multiple opponents, they tell Sherman that the Yankees were by far the easiest team to game plan around. So susceptible they were to a very similar attack plan. So basically, they just don't have good hitters. They've got dangerous hitters, but just no good hitters apart from Aaron Judge. Hitting coach Dylan Lawson became the first coach fired in season and over a quarter of a century under Brian Cashman. But his pull it in the air ethos is soaked up right up and down the organization. The Yankees need to work on producing better overall hitters. So there's obviously a lot to digest right there, but it goes on to basically tell you just how serious things are in terms of the mismanagement that's gone on in this front office. We are talking about huge mistakes up and down the organization. Now, it's so good that it's not just us, which is saying this. Now, Sherman is actually just basically telling the truth at last. That's what we've been wanting from the media for a long time. Tell the truth, right? Now that they can basically get away with it now because Brian Cashman's not making it to the postseason, so we don't need those stupid statistics all about his postseason record. Here's the facts. Yeah, he's developed some prospects, but they all crashed and thudded and burned, apart from Aaron Judge. They've all crashed, thudded, and burned. And as Sherman brightly points out, as we've pointed out in NYY News, now in NYY Underground have pointed out, you could have traded them before their value completely plummeted, but they don't do it, right? It's common sense, right? And yeah, they got rid of the contract of Tyro Estrada. I think Estrada would have been a much better dude to have as a mentor to Volpe slash Peraza than IKF. Tyro Estrada is a better player, but they got rid of his contract to bring in Rugnet Odor because they didn't have any lefties. Why did they not have any lefties? Because of Brian Cashman, right? Why did they trade away Jordan Montgomery, who's obviously one of the better pitchers in baseball this year? Because they needed a center fielder. Why? Because Brian Cashman did a miserable job having a center fielder on the roster because they couldn't after Brett Gardner. They don't know what to do. Right? It's absolutely unbelievable the decision making that has been going on in this front office for years. Mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And the one thing that they did right was extend Aaron Judge, but they made a mistake there too because they could have signed him 12 months earlier, cheaper than what they ended up having to pay him. Right? Now, any price that we pay Aaron Judge is a discount as far as I'm concerned because he's so good. But it's still not smart business. You don't piss off your best player, and you don't just hold for 12 months and then risk losing him to the freaking Padres and the Giants just because you're a bad general manager. There's no excuse for that. No excuse for that whatsoever. So there's so many problems up and down this thing. I'm so glad there's going to be an audit, but here's the truth. The biggest issue is this offense, right? We're going to find pitching because we've actually had a decent year in terms of pitching. The offense, I've just pointed out, 2 out of 22 guys with at least 50 plate appearances, only 2 of them are above league average. That's insulting. That is insulting. How have you managed to put together such an awful roster of offense? How is that even possible? As Sherman points out, it's hard to do with the worst payroll in baseball, let alone the best. That's insane. And if I was Hal Steinbrenner and I'm reading these stats, there's zero evidence that Brian Cashman needs to come back. Zero evidence to suggest that he's worth another year. There's none. There's no evidence to suggest he deserves to come back. Everything he's done has been wrong for about 5 years. So it's time. It's time. He needs to go. I don't think it's going to happen, but if the auditors can at least set fire to this horrible analytics staff who have told Brian Cashman to make disastrous trades, then maybe if you put better people around Brian Cashman will look like a better GM. Now, is that who you want to pay $5 million a year to? That your general manager is beholden to guys who are telling him what to do because he's not very good at what he's doing? No, not really. I want a general manager that actually knows baseball, right? That actually knows how to develop prospects, actually knows who's got value and who doesn't. I don't trust Brian Cashman to make any of those decisions. But it would certainly help that if you have to have him because he's a member of the family, put better people around him. We've started well last year, got 2 decent people around him. Hopefully increase their role within the organization. But yeah, if you get a better analytics staff that isn't going to tell Brian Cashman to spend $50 million on Josh Donaldson, then that would be a start. But there's a lot of work to do, guys. A lot of work to do. The thing is, we're not a Soto away from competing. He'll certainly help us on that trajectory, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done behind the scenes in order for us to be a playoff team next year or a competitive World Series caliber team next year.
No, it's going to be one of those, like Soto is your starting point for your offensive needs, and Yamamoto is your starting point for your pitching needs. We do need, yes, the pitching had a great year this year, right? Not, on world, we're not talking about, the Braves of the 90s, but they were, more often than not, they were 9 out of 10 times, they were the reason we were actually still in games. It wasn't the bats. So if you're able to have Yamamoto to reinforce your rotation that's already strong and add Soto to deepen your lineup, which is inept, I think that's where you have to have that balance on both ends of the ball. So, yeah, it's not that Soto is going to be the end-all, be-all, but you need a starting point. The biggest problem that we've had was bad timing on hitting, inept hitting, actually just completely disappeared, in October. Soto is that guy who's pointed out. He's already got the World Series experience. He's not afraid of the moment. He came in his rookie year when they had to finish when we had to finish that suspended game, and he hit the home run to win it for Washington against us. He wasn't intimidated right off the bat by the Bronx. That says this guy is not. He can handle the New York market. He can handle the spotlight. Is even with all the hype around him, he was still able to stay focused at the plate and get the job done. But before we dive any deeper into this, because we have a fire chat going on today, so let's start giving some of them their due. We got FJ in the building. What's going on, FJ? NFB, always. It's been said the Yankees don't have the right prospects to get Soto. Not sure if I agree.
Finch, I don't believe in the front office. No, I agree.
Nope.
Me neither, my guy. Me neither.
You're right. We also got, where do you go? We got new to the chat. Jared, welcome to the Pitch Strike Chronicles. Hope you're having a good day. As always, our good friend TC Steels. He trusted Cashman too much. He's fed up with the mediocrity and flushing money down the toilet. Absolutely. I think that's why you're seeing, he gave Cashman this extension, and now he's like, wait a minute, I might have made a mistake. This is not working out. We're actually getting worse and worse. That's why he's bringing in these people to be like, okay, I've used all my, I put my knowledge into this front office. What am I missing in my personnel that I can't, with my money, get over the hump? So, exactly. We got Mr. Barros in the chat. What's going on, Mr. Barros? If the Yankees get Soto next year, 24 will be fire, no doubt. Jonathan, what's going on? Jonathan, there needs to be smart trades and signings. This is a make or break off season. We've said it. Morning Brew Sports have said it. Peter said it. Steve Schumann, what's going on? Steve, Boris will ensure that Soto reaches free agency. Too much risk in giving up the farm for one season without any confidence that they will be able to sign him long term. That might be an issue, but that also might drive down the price. So you might not have to overspend. If you have to overspend, as much as I really want this guy in the Bronx, you can't sell your whole future for 1 year. It just doesn't make any sense.
But what's an overspend, though?
What the Yankees would do is they would make sure that they'd extend him as part of the trade deal. They'd be like, we're not going to trade for him unless we got assurances that we can and extend him. I think that's what would happen.
Yeah,
but even then, like, what's an overspend though for Juan Soto? Because if you get Juan Soto, you don't need Spencer Jones anymore because you still have Jason Dominguez. We have 170 infielders, and we already know that 2 of them are going to be here for the long haul, in Volpe and Peraza. And if Torres is still here, maybe you extend him. You still got Gleyber Torres, and you need to figure out first base. Guess what? We don't have a first baseman in our system, so we don't got to worry about that. We're probably waiting for Munataka I forgot I think it's Munataka to come from Japan in a couple of years. So there's really no overspending. It's just the pitching that you got to worry about. But when did we ever develop good pitching when they get to the majors? So aside from Drew Thorpe, I don't know if there's anybody in this system that you probably hold back in a trade. And I don't think it's going to take 5 or 6 guys. It might take a Clark Schmidt, like Donald mentioned earlier, because the Padres are going to need pitching because Blake Snell's going to be a free agent. So they could use a Clark Schmidt, Spencer Jones, and maybe another prospect or 2. It could be a 3 or 4 type of person trade, but I don't think that's an overspend because you hope that Spencer Jones becomes a Juan Soto, but there's no guarantee he does. I think he's going to be a good player, but is he going to be Juan Soto? Even for 1 year of Juan Soto, you have a better chance of winning a World Series with Juan Soto than you do without Juan Soto. It's as simple as that. If we had Juan Soto this year next to Aaron Judge and with Gleyber Torres in the lineup, we're probably in the playoff race. That's how good of a hitter he is. So I don't think there's an overspend for him. And yeah, I think the Yankees would make this trade with a hope that they could extend him because if he would extend with the Padres before free agency, why wouldn't he extend with the Yankees? It's a pretty. I don't think he would be like, I have to go to free agency because maybe the Washington Nationals try to get me back, or maybe the Colorado Rockies try to get me. Like, I think he wants to be in a big market. So it's like San Diego's still a big market team. It's California. It's a big area. New York is a big area. I think he thrives in the big spot. So I think if the Yankees got him, there'd be no reason why they couldn't extend him. But I don't think there's an overpay for him because you would hope that Spencer Jones becomes him. And we don't know how pitching works. We never get good pitching from our system. So I don't think there's any overspend, even for 1 year, because you're better with Juan Soto than without. And I know we can't sacrifice a championship for championships, as Brian Cashman said, but we haven't won a championship since 2009. So maybe you have to sacrifice championships that aren't really there for that one, because we just want one right now. We just want to get there because we haven't gotten there for so long. And Juan Soto helps you get there.
No, when I say overspend, I mean, I'm not going to give up 8 prospects for one player. Yeah, it's not going to be like, all right, well, if I throw in this guy, doesn't get it done. All right, what if I add this guy? Like, they can't do that. I think, like you said, you need about maybe 4, maybe 5, 5 for 1 at max. But and the names aren't an issue because if you're going to have Soto, we already have Dominguez, right? When, unless Spencer Jones is going to move to front, start working out at first base. But we also, maybe Sweeney becomes the odd man out, with the way that Peraza could play third. Unless Sweeney wants to move to first. If Wells is going to continue on this trajectory, what's the future of Rice? So there are big names that could be attached to a deal that they're so far away from having room to move up to the major leagues. We won't even remember, it's one of those, we won't remember them when that time comes. We'll already have replenished. So, and because it's a 1 year deal, it's only going to be a 1 year trade. That also softens the leverage from the Padres because they're not going to be able to replenish their farm system with one trade to get back what they gave up for Soto. Which is why
Here's a good one. Steve Schumann, what if the Padres insist on Dominguez and without him, no deal? Do you do that?
He has to sign an extension. You have to extend Soto on the spot. If then I'd probably I love Dominguez. I love Dominguez. But if you can get a guarantee that Juan Soto's going to be here for the next 10 plus years, I'd probably make that deal happen. Because again, you hope Dominguez becomes Juan Soto. Like you're hoping your prospects become what Juan Soto has been. He's been nothing but productive, and he's been getting better every single year. The dude gets on a 400 plus on base. That's like unheard of. Aaron Judge's on base is through the roof for us, and it's not even close to what Juan Soto does. They're afraid of him, and if you put him in front of Judge, you have to pitch to him. And if you don't pitch to him, you got to pitch to Judge. And if you don't pitch to either of them, then you got to pitch to Rizzo, who's not going to be concussed. So that's deadly. And I love Dominguez, and I would love for him to be here. But if I'm getting Juan Soto guaranteed for the next 10 years, maybe more with an extension, I'm doing it. You want to win right now, and you're not going to have Dominguez till August. So, and I know he's only 20 years old. He's going to recover, and he's going to be a damn good player. But Juan Soto is like, that's an elite player. We're not talking about just a good player. We're talking about one of the best in the game. Like he's like a top 5 player in a lot of people's minds, maybe top 10. That there's not a lot of people you wouldn't trade for him. Like you give up what it takes to get him, especially if there's a guarantee you're getting him locked up for a decade.
So Dev passes on it. I don't know. It's a real tough one. It is a real tough one because the truth is even if we land Soto, I still don't think we're a Soto away. If we're one piece away from a championship, you do it 100 times out of 100, but we're not, which makes you have to consider other aspects. What's going to get the Yankees back to where they need to be is having prospects which you know are going to be legit, and you protect them, and you develop them, you focus on them. So if I was to consider it, I would have a handful and protect them, but do everything possible to develop them in the right way. Not just try and fit them into the Yankee system of pull it up in the air and hope for the best, because that doesn't work anymore. Forget that. We need the new hitting philosophy. But you need to protect these prospects. You need to be like Volpe, Peraza, say Dominguez. You're my guys. You're our future. We're going to sit down. We're going to try and develop you guys the right way. Wells as well, right? And then just work on those guys. But that means protecting them. So in my opinion, because I know what we have in Dominguez, I don't know what we have in Spencer Jones yet. I know Spencer Jones is going to be awesome for all intents and purposes, but you know that Dominguez can handle the major. He's come in and he was already breaking records in his first week of being in the big leagues. I try and protect him. I think it's a no deal. I think you can find other ways in which to make sure it can happen without trading away Dominguez. I really think that the Yankees need to be smart about this, because the Yankees dynasty was built around their prospects, a core bunch of prospects, and they developed them. It wasn't just chasing the big name. And another aspect of Soto is they still didn't make the playoffs, even with Soto having a 400 OBP and having an unbelievable career year. Still didn't help them make the playoffs, which means that it's nothing against Soto, because it's the same with Aaron Judge, but it means you need to build a better team around him. And I think that the Yankees need to be focusing on that first. You need to put a better team around Aaron Judge to then add on Soto and things like that. So in my opinion, I would protect Dominguez, Wells, Peraza, Volpe, absolutely protect those guys and look to develop them. The rest can be expendable for a deal for Soto, in my opinion. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, I think in the chat, let us know who you would give up for Soto and what kind of contract you would want promised to him. Now, here's how I would do it, right? I'm calling the Padres, and I'm also getting Boris on a three-way phone call, right? Or I'm talking to Boris at the same time. Here's what you're going to get. We're going to give you Schmidt. We'll give you that maybe Vasquez or Brito, one or the other. Trey Sweeney, and pick somebody else. What I'm also saying to Boris, right, we're going to bring him to the Bronx. He's coming. We made the deal with the Padres. The deal is, and I want to, you get it in writing, to ensure our investment to Soto by paying prospects, we get first crack at signing him. We get the first negotiation opportunity when he's a free agent if we can't reach an agreement during the season. Until all talks fall apart, you can't talk to anybody else.
Is that all you're offering for Juan Soto?
Yeah.
Schmidt,
for 1 year? Yeah.
Schmidt, Brito, or Vasquez, and Trey Sweeney?
Throw in somebody else. And somebody else.
Who's the throw-in? You're talking about Juan Soto. You're not talking about Cody Bellinger for a 1 year. You're talking about Juan Soto. It's going to take Spencer Jones and then some. If it's not Dominguez, it's going to be Spencer Jones. Pereira?
Yeah.
I don't know what his value is at this point.
Right? It might take both Pereira and Jones. If they're not going to take Dominguez, because Dominguez all of a sudden, because teams have now seen what he can do, Dominguez is going to rise up at what teams want. So if the Yankees are saying we're not trading him, which would be smart to say that, even for a Juan Soto, Spencer Jones has to be available. Because if you're getting Juan Soto and have the plan to extend him, there's nowhere to put Spencer Jones. So I'm sorry, even though I would put him at first base, he's so athletic in the outfield that it'd be tough to say as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old move to first for the rest of your career. He wants to play the outfield. He'd have a chance to do that immediately in San Diego, and he'd probably be really good there. It's going to take a lot. Like, you can't, even though the Padres' leverage is down from what it was in August, because they should have traded him in August, but this is still a premier player. This is still a superstar. He's going to be an all-star every single year. every single year, and he's only 24. He's not like 27, 28 going into his 30s. He's 24. So if you extend him for 10 years, he's still going to be in his prime by the time, or come right in the middle of his prime by the time he hits free agency again. So, like, we're talking about an absolute superstar here that you're trying to trade for. You can't just, I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong for trying to give up as little as possible, but the Padres are not going to say, that's fine. Yeah, we'll take a throw in with a solid major league pitcher and a couple of guys that have shown flashes in Vasquez or Brito. Like, even Pereira hasn't really shown much. You can develop him, sure, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to be it's a trade that's going to hurt in terms of prospects. This is not just your regular everyday solid player. It's a superstar. That's why the Nationals wanted so much for him. The Padres had to pay up a lot to get him. A lot. So maybe, and I know someone brought it up earlier, you might take a bad contract along with it to soften the blow, but I wouldn't want to do that because I don't want to keep adding on bad contracts. I know the Padres want to shed salary, but that might be the only way to do it without giving up so much. But if you want just Juan Soto, Spencer Jones is probably the first to go. If Dominguez is untouchable.
Would they consider Gleyber Torres?
I don't know, because they have Cronenworth, they have Kim. I don't know, and I know they have Machado at third. He ain't going anywhere. Would they maybe keep Cronenworth at first? Because they have Bogarts at short. Where do they put Torres? If that's the case.
Yeah.
I think
They don't need him
Torres.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. They had to move Tatis to the outfield.
Right.
So it's all speculation, but we don't really know. But I'm saying, like, for a Juan Soto, you have to pay up a lot to get him because he's that damn good.
It's like, Steve's threw the name out. What about Thorpe? You think if they ask for Thorpe, or it could be a 3-team trade? That's another possibility.
Good point, Dev.
But now you go. That's going to cause me to think too much on the spot. We don't want that. But,
well, it could be a case that maybe Torres goes to another team, and then you take the prospects from that to add it to the Soto deal to make it a 3-team trade. That's a possibility.
The Marlins could get involved then. Yankees, Marlins, Padres. The Padres can make out like bandits. The Yankees can get who they want. You might even get something else if you're the Yankees. Maybe the Yankees get a relief pitcher from the Marlins, or maybe they find a way to get one of those starters, like an Edward Cabrera, who's not great, but a guy that can give you some depth, and I think Matt Blake could fix him. There's a chance that you can make that work. A 3-team trade, Yankees, Marlins, and Padres, could actually really work because everyone will get what they want. Marlins finally get Torres. The Padres will get a load of prospects, and they're still going to be competitive next year because they're like right around 500 right now. So it's not like they're going to be a 60-win team. They still got a ton of talent, even without Juan Soto. So it has to be the right move for them.
Yeah, they put a lot into their payroll for play. It's another. It's very similar to what Steve Cohen did. They realized, look, we're not afraid to invest the money, but if it's not being spent right, we're going to pivot. And I think that's what we're seeing the Padres do as well. They overspent on players that weren't able to get it done, so now they want to just shuffle things around a little bit. They're going to stay competitive. I'm not saying they're not going to tank next year, but at the same time, they have to make changes. They can't bring with the contracts that they're stuck with. They can't afford to keep Soto. With the 3-team trade, Miami was brought up, and they've wanted Torres for a while. If in the 3-team trade, if we get Soto and let's say, what was the LI brought his name up yesterday? I can't remember it now. But there was Ryan McCann, and because he's also he can play the outfield and he can also play first base. So if you can throw him into it as a piece and have where Miami gets Torres, but Miami attaches to our offer like a Garrett. That might be something that gets. I don't know if it gets it done, but I think it gets the needle moving.
Yeah, it's good. It'll probably be a 3-team trade. We have good prospects. Like the Padres need catchers. We have a ton of catchers. Agustin Ramirez is like our 20. Yeah, like Ramirez is like our
As good
23rd.
as he's been, give him Rice.
Ben Rice
That might
is not.
sweeten the pot.
He's just a hitter though. Like he's not like a top prospect. Like he's Agustin Ramirez is higher on the list than he is. You gave up Ramirez because we have Austin Wells already, and you still have like 8 other catchers in the system. So you can give up multiple. You can give up a catcher. You can give up Jones and maybe Clark Schmidt and maybe even a Trey Sweeney. Even though he's probably they don't need another infielder. They have several. So maybe you give up one of your pitching prospects as well. Maybe a Chase Hampton because I know they don't want to give up Thorpe, but you might have to give up one of those guys, one of your top arms.
That's which player are you referring to? Because Steve says McMahon is with Colorado and is a third baseman.
Yeah, I'm going by what I was saying yesterday, and so he kept saying because what Li said was he would rather than spend $50 million a year on Soto, he'd rather divide that and take on Tatis's contract and McMahon. So I thought I got fooled thinking McMahon was with the Padres as well for a 2-player trade. I didn't realize McMahon was with Colorado.
Yeah, he's 23 home runs, 70 ribbies this year. Not bad.
And
I don't know if that's
third
base. Yeah, the third baseman because he also wants Peraza to be the third baseman forever. So now wants to get one.
Well, that's why McMahon can also play first.
Yeah, but you got Rizzo for first base next year.
Well, the reason that I think it'd be smart to, and obviously we'll really dive a lot deeper, and as the off season goes, but we don't know the health of Rizzo at this point. To me, until he starts playing games again, I don't know if I can lock into him. I have to see him playing to what we know Rizzo can play as. Before I'm like, okay, we can stop worrying about first base. Rizzo's healthy, he's back, and he's good to go. I think you have to have a plan B for first base, and it can't just be LeMahieu. You need somebody, younger with a little more tangibility.
LeMahieu has been perfectly fine at first base. That's why you probably keep him on. Maybe you convince Stanton to waive his no trade and you can eat a lot of his money, but you clear some of that money off the books, and that fits Soto in there. Because if you're moving Stanton and Torres, that's a lot of money coming off the books as well. And it allows you to hold on to LeMahieu as that backup. I'm going to go off the basis that Rizzo's going to be healthy and healthy enough for one more season. But if you have LeMahieu as the backup, it's better than Jake Bauers. It's better than Billy McKinney. I'd much rather, and it's better than having to give up more prospects to get a Ryan McMahon, who's a third baseman playing first. That's issues that we've had all year is having guys play out of position. LeMahieu can play everywhere except for shortstop. So if you need him to play first, play second, or play third, he's that guy. But you have to believe that Rizzo's going to be good enough for one more season. But that's also a reason why a lot of people would rather go after Bellinger, because you can just move him to first once Rizzo is gone, and that clears up the outfield spots for a healthy Dominguez and eventually Spencer Jones. So the one thing I do love about this offseason is there's plenty of opportunities to make different moves. Like, it doesn't have to be Juan Soto, but if he is available, get him. But if the Padres start playing hardball like the Pirates did with Reynolds, then pivot quickly. Say, okay, forget it. Because that's the mistake we made, is we were so dead set on getting Reynolds that we ignored every other player available. Because I kept saying Max Kepler was going to have a better year, and I got laughed at. And he would have been like our second best player this season. Go look at his numbers. So I said he's going to be a better player this year with the new rules.
It says more about the Yankees, though, than it does about Max Kepler.
I'm just like, I know, but Max Kepler is having a good year. He's got like a 20-plus home run season. The OPS is good, plays a damn good outfield, and he hits from the left side of the plate. What do we need? Left-handed bat, plays the outfield well.
Shout out.
That's some power. So I would have. What's up to Jason? I wanted to. just wanted them to make other moves. So if Soto becomes another Brian Reynolds situation, you got to move off from it quickly as much as we want him. They can't be like, it's Soto or nothing. You got to be like, all right, what if we do get Bellinger? What if we do go for so-and-so or whatever? What if we just rely on the kids and not spend so much money and maybe reset the tax? They might try to do that for all we know, which I wouldn't be opposed to because I would rather trust what we have in the system because that's what's gotten the Orioles to where they are today. That's what's gotten the Braves to where they are today. And then they piled on a bunch of really good trades later on. So maybe they have to take a page out of the Braves book where they build the system, and then when it's real, when those pieces are in place, then you go get the big star. So they could do that.
Good on, Jason. Good to see you hanging out for us in the morning. No, I don't know. There's no clear-cut answer, with this off season because there are so many holes to fill. Every time we think we're solving one, we're opening up another. And this goes to the failures of our GM. This isn't just because of one bad off season or one bad deadline. You can go back 5 years to when this started, right? I was big, and I don't regret the move, but you're starting to see where the contract is really starting to rear its ugly head as far as getting this roster reconstructed a bit, because when you can only play the DH, which is the Yankees' fault. Okay, we're on record. We said they should have just let him play the outfield. Move from the left field. Gardner was on the decline. It was the perfect opportunity to get him in there. But no, the Yankees knew better, and they just destroyed Stanton. But Stanton, he's shot. He looks morally defeated as well, and that to me is a problem. Like that to me was a problem. It used to be a strikeout. He was frustrated. Now he just looks like he just looks depressed as all hell. And I just think he's in a bad headspace right now, and it's not going to help the team.
Well, I think he's mad because he knows he's better than this. We all know he's not this player because he was an all-star last year. And Donald brought it up the other day. He was an all-star pre-injury of last season. And this year before he got hurt, he was playing at a really good level. It was Giancarlo Stanton of old, and he was on and he's still close to a 30 home run season despite probably being his worst season of his career. He's still what is he at 24 home runs? So you still see he's got the potential, and if you get a Juan Soto, that takes so much pressure off of Stanton's shoulders that he doesn't have to be the guy anymore, even though he's making a ton of money. All of a sudden, he can be that 230 hitter with 35-plus home runs, and you're like, who cares if he strikes out? Because if he's hitting 35, 40 homers a year, but they got to keep him healthy. So that's another thing this audit could hopefully do is okay, well, we know your analytics team sucks, but what about the injuries? Because the Yankees continuously, every single year, what do they say? Injuries, injuries, injuries. Look into your fucking medical staff and figure out why Giancarlo Stanton is breaking his hip like he's falling and he can't get up. Like he's on, what's the thing called? Life alert? Where is he? A geriatric? And he's not. He's 32. He shouldn't be breaking down like this. He's built like a goddamn Greek statue. He's a Greek god. They keep saying it. He was on that Sports Illustrated butt-ass naked because of how good his physique is. He shouldn't be breaking down like this. They got to figure this out because he takes 3 steps and he's like, you can't do it. You got to figure out why that keeps happening. But that 1 year he was doing yoga with Aaron Judge. Him and Judge did not get hurt. They were healthy the entire year. And Stanton had a great season. We were saying he should have been considered for MVP because those two put the team on their back that year. Stanton.
No, I mean, I am certain that the medical staff has made Stanton's situation worse than it is. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't think there's any doubt that Aaron Judge has his own batting coach for a reason. And I think it's the same situation where I don't think Aaron Judge trusts the organization to do right by him, so he has to do right by himself. And it has to be the same situation with Stanton because this medical staff has done a terrible job with Stanton. It's quite crazy to me that every time that he even does a light jog, he pulls a hamstring. And And it's almost impossible to be that injury prone unless there's something not right. Now, maybe there's something not right with his legs, but that still doesn't mean that the medical staff can't help him. There has to be some ways in which to look after him. There has to be some ways in which to make him healthier. There has to be some ways, and it's not just him. There's much better examples throughout this organization. How is it that we've got like 60 plus people in the IL this year? That's impossible unless there's some form of malfeasance. Has to be. There has to be.
Well,
It's just impossible to go through these guys one by one by one by one. And especially all coming out of spring training, it was all the same muscle injury, muscle injury, muscle injury, muscle injury. It was all that. And you're thinking, right, well, that means that there's not the right training methods going on. These guys are not being looked after properly because analytics doesn't just tell you about player personnel; it also tells you about injuries, and they can measure every single aspect of your body. You've got apps for that shit. Even us old bastards have apps for everything, right? And you can't tell me that like a billion-dollar organization, multi-billion-dollar organization can't put together a medical staff that can actually keep guys on the field and actually track what their injury status is? Because it seems to be that it's a surprise to everyone when something happens. Oh, it seems to be the same response. Oh, well, that's another one gone. That's millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that's costing the Yankees, not just because they're paying bad medical people, but it's costing them because they're paying personnel that can't be on the field. So, I mean, any organization would do that. Any organization would be any job in the real world, say, right? If they're taking a look and their auditors are like, why is half the staff taking all this sick time? What's going on, right? That would be looked at. They'd be like, well, this is costing us X amount of dollars because half the workforce seems to be hurt or seems to be sick all the time. So it's either something not going on right with here or there's something wrong with the staff, right? And then that's what the auditor would go through. So it'd be the same respects to the Yankees. These auditors are going to be like, why is half the organization been on the IL and is costing us X amount of millions of dollars? Like, this needs to be fixed. So this training staff is completely incompetent and the front office is completely incompetent.
That's why I started calling out Dr. Ahmad. Everybody was talking about Fishman with the analytics. What about Ahmad with the medical staff? Why is nobody calling him out for his? You know, everybody wants to talk about injuries. Fucking Susan Woolman said it on the broadcast yesterday when they were talking about the standings with the Rays. Look at all the injuries the Rays have. And look where they are in the standings. Why? Because they had the people behind the scenes. They had their development team having guys ready in the wings to pick up the pieces as they fell. So that's why the Rays are still in it. You know, and, you know, quick side note, congratulations to the Orioles. They locked up the division yesterday. Good for them. You know, also, we didn't bring it up. I think we did bring up Brooks Robinson, you know, and the baseball's loss of him. But I think that you're going to see a big with these consultants, and you're going to see a big overhaul. I think I have confidence that we're going to see a more complete roster going into next season. I think you're going to see also more Hal and less Cashman. I think Hal's going to start taking the reins a little bit and kind of channel his father and be like, all right, I want to know everything now. You've done enough damage. I'm taking control. I think you're going to see him more around the players, like George was. Maybe he'll actually go to a game, like his father did. His father was at every fucking game. So, you know, and the players noticed that. They recognize that.
Can I just nip in here with what Steve says here? Tampa's medical staff is just as bad, if not worse. But it's still not really an excuse because the Rays are going to the playoffs for a fifth straight year, and they have 419 wins to the Yankees 408 over the last 5 years, and they are obviously at the far other end of the spectrum in terms of payroll. I mean, just look at it. The Rays rotation was waylaid top to bottom. And in mid-August, they lost their best player, Wander Franco, for at least the rest of the season because of administrative leave, because of some sort of dodgy stuff he was doing. That I don't want to get into, but they still survived and went to the playoffs. So the Yankees have infinitely more resources, and they can't seem to make the playoffs. And I'm sorry, there's just no excuse for that. And you look at the Dodgers. They cut their payroll from 2022 to 2023, led the majors in IL time themselves, and still ran away with the NL West, and are making the playoffs for 11th straight time, 10th as division champs. So I'm sorry, there's like zero excuse that the Yankees can have. I don't want Brian Cashman to come out and say, injuries, oh, we were really, really close, just injuries. And Aaron Judge played and even another 20 more games, we would have made the playoffs. Not interested in your excuses anymore, Brian Cashman. You have had 10 times the resources of every other organization, and you still can't keep people on the field, and you still can't win the division, and you can't seem to win a championship. It's all your fault, Brian. Ain't no one else's fault.
Yep. Yeah. What's going on, D-Rod? I saw you sneak in. And Li, where the frig were you? You missed a good one today. But we all kept saying, "Where's Li? Where's Li?" The one time we want you here and you ain't. But to Jason's point, right? And him and I are in agreement with it. The difference between us and Tampa, despite the poor medical, is the player development. Their player development is able to, pick up the pieces of the injuries. And so, all right, you get some sleep. Well, don't sleep on our time, all right? But no, it's all good. But we were talking about with the Soto trades and all that. But yeah, you're a little late. But that is going to wrap things up for us today. If you haven't yet, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your stranger on the corner. But this has been the Pinstripe Chronicles. We will be back on Monday. And as always, wear those pinstripes of pride and play hard.
Thanks again, guys.